So, first thing, with microphone, without microphone. Do you hear me back there?
Yes.
It's okay?
Yeah, okay.
Perfect, then without microphone. So, good afternoon everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is David Marcos, in Spanish David Marcos. And I'm the co-founder of GenHelix, Nishibi, and Dima Biotech, 3 companies. I will go through all of that in my presentation. First of all, I would like to thank IE for the opportunity. It's my pleasure. And today I want to talk about my journey. What I've been through since I graduated from university. I first came to Japan. I co-founded 3 companies. I created roughly, I won't say we, because it was always within a team, but I was co-founder of 3 companies who created total about 200 job positions with very high qualification. And after all the ups and downs, I kind of developed a methodology, or at least certain points that I think that could be useful for you in your endeavors, in your projects, or even in your life. A word or a Yoji Jukugo who sums it all up is Nana Korobiyauki. I'm going to use some Japanese words and also some English proverbs, which actually are pretty much the same. My intention is that my talk is not more than 20 or 25 minutes. It's the limit of attention for any person, even if it's very interesting. In my case, I hope to be interesting, but I don't know. Because after all, I would like to have some time to share your opinions, ask whatever you want, or I don't know, tell me to shut up. So today I'm going to speak very briefly first about the importance of education, then my journey, what I have learned in what I've called the ETR method, then about the startup mentality that you can apply to everything in your life, because we are always giving up on some project, or some projects just end and you have to move on to the next one. That's the startup mentality. And then a conclusion. To put it in a very graphic way, how I evolved from the guy on the left. That's me in 2006 when I first came to Japan. I could speak almost no Japanese. And throughout my career and with the ups and downs, I put myself into a position to have access to very relevant people, like in this case, the King of Spain. I've been lucky to share many good conversations with him, and you know, it's nothing too special, but definitely an improvement, and I reached that level of connections. So, first of all, I know that some of you are going to go to Spain, some of you have already been, but I want to talk very briefly about education, especially in IE. As Ino-san said, you're going to find an international environment, 92% of international students, not Spanish. 90% of the people, upon graduation, they are placed in the new jobs. Around 60% they move on to new functions and improved different functions and more relevant functions, and around 1 in 6 start their own business. The average salary is around 75,000 euros with a max of 156,000, taking into consideration that it depends on the purchase power. It's not the same, the salary and the cost of living in Latin America, for example, than in Switzerland or whatever. So it's an average, okay? Considering all of them. Talking about variety and diversity, I've chosen 3 examples, and relevant ones for different reasons. First, on the left, we have Marta, which founded Minimize, which is a company to bring together, to bring closer families. I put her there because she's a female entrepreneur, and it is relevant. Unfortunately, there are not enough female entrepreneurs, and the ones who are there, many times they don't get as much attention as they deserve. So that's why I wanted to put her there. Second one is Mr. Adachi. He's the co-founder of TechSnake, and it's another good example because Japanese are worldwide known for being hard workers, and similarly to Spain, there is not an image of a Japanese entrepreneur. There are some, of course, and they are very relevant, but maybe they don't get enough attention or enough credibility. So that's why I wanted to present you with another example. Both of them, the three of them actually, are IE alumni. And the third one is Smitsi, another company that I have highlighted here because it is a group of people, which is actually, this is the reality. Even if you only see one person as a founder, the truth is that things are usually not done by one person. It's impossible. We cannot know about anything, and I'm going to talk about that later on. Moving on about my journey. I arrived in Japan in 2006. Before that, I finished my engineering studies and I finished my master's degree. I came to Japan through a young professionals program of the Ministry of Industry, Tourism and Commerce from Spain. A very good program. I had the opportunity to work for 1.5 years at the Embassy of Spain in the Investment and Industrial Cooperation Department, and I was in charge of the biotech market. After 1.5 years, I moved on to another public institution. It's called the Cervantes Institute. Maybe some of you know it. It's the agency in Spain responsible for the promotion of the Spanish language and the Spanish culture, not only from Spain, but from Latin America too. I worked there as I co-founded the Science and Technology Department. I was its first manager, and we had some really interesting events. That was in 2008, and we had an event. There was the Expo, the Blanco in Zaragoza in Spain, 2008. And I was preparing that event, and we had, we're as usual struggling to get relevant people to come, right? Ambassadors, ministers, and whatnot. One day, one happy day, two guys, very serious Japanese guys, came to the office, and they said, "We want to talk to the director." We were all scared. I don't know, maybe taxes, maybe, I don't know, but they were very serious. And they told us that they came from the Kunaicho. And so the Crown Prince of Japan, Naruhito, he saw and he learned about our event and he wanted to attend, which for me, it was incredible because it was a humble project. So he came, it was fantastic. Of course, from a logistic point of view, was crazy. But we got really relevant attendees. We got all the ambassadors in Japan. We got ex-ministers, ministers on duty. We got ex-prime ministers. It was fantastic, and it was a very good promotion activity for free for the Cervantes Institute. That very year, with another 3 people, I co-founded Gen Helix Group in Spain. With an office in Japan, because during my time at the embassy, as I told you, I studied the biotech Japanese market, and we established it in 2008. In 2011, since we co-founded it, we had access to all the aspects of the project. It was around a 25 million euro project, and we were in charge as co-founders of everything. We were in charge of fundraising, financing, legal, subsidies, engineering, project management, everything. So in 2012, I thought, with all that we've done, and it went pretty good, why don't I offer the same kind of lean services, professional services to other companies that could be starting or even in a more mature period? And that's how, again, I co-founded Nishibi. in 2012. Currently, we have 5 offices in Spain, 1 in Japan, and we are around 80 people. Fast forward, 2014, 2015, one of our clients made us an offer to acquire the company, a Swiss global pharma group. I'm going to talk later on about a bit more about Helix, but anyway, we got acquired. I signed a non-competition clause, which is normal in this case. There's a certain period in which I could not work for another such company. And I was working with the group which acquired us for like a year for the integration of the companies and for the good merge of the company. So I took advantage of my time, and I established the Tokyo office of Nishibi, and I did 2 things that I actually didn't have the time to do for the past 6 years. I took and I passed the Nihongo no Ryoku Shiken, the first one, the EQ, and I resumed my PhD and researcher career. As Ino-san said, I like to teach, I like to share my opinion, I like to share my knowledge if it's of any use. So I resumed those activities. After my non-competition period expired, out of the 4 partners that we were in Helix, there was an investor and 3 tech partners. From those 3 tech partners, 2 of us, we started another company similar to Helix, laboratory and manufacturing plant. I will talk about it later, called Dima Biotech. And new projects arose. For example, this collaboration with the IE, I became a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and barring any problem, on the 30th of October, I'm going to be one of the directors of the Chamber of Commerce here. And I was also named Engineer of the Year in my home region, Castilla and Leon. Like 2.5 million inhabitants. They decided that I was Engineer of the Year. I don't know. Worse for them. I don't know, but anyway, it was very nice because after many years, I could feel one thing, that we are not all parents, but we are all children of someone, right? And one of the best things we can do, in my opinion, is making your parents proud. And I could make my parents proud, and I'm very happy for that. So I share this pic with you, with my parents. This is last June. This looks fantastic. Right now, I've told you about how fantastic my journey has been. It all seems to be fantastic. Actually, it was not like that. There were ups and downs, many periods of just Jimmy and really discreet job and no spotlight, no nothing. So, in reality, there were, okay, I won't say death, but there were problems, there were storms, there were moments in which I said, I don't know what the hell is going on. When finally things went well with the biotech company, I felt a bit like Michael Jackson. Yeah, I'm fantastic. But overall, when all was said and done, my feeling was more like this. But even so, it was interesting, it was funny, and I'm still in my journey. But the first idea is that you only have a journey when you look back. Now if I look back, I see a path and a journey. But at the moment, I didn't know anything, because in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, until we sold the company, we didn't know where it was going. So, I told you about Helix. I will talk 1 more minute about it. It is a laboratory and manufacturing plant of monoclonal antibodies. I always say the same thing. If any of you know what an antibody is, it's not good usually, because it means that someone close to you was very sick. If not, usually people don't know what a monoclonal antibody is. Anyway, those are targeted therapies only against the bad cells, so to say, for cancer, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, and so on. We use a cutting-edge technology because, you know, when you manufacture those cells, because those are actually cell lines, you actually make a fermentation of cells within a bioreactor. Those bioreactors used to be of stainless steel, so you had to stop between batches or between projects. You had to stop the plant, clean validate the cleaning, and if everything was okay, you could start with the next project, which took usually from 4 to 6 weeks. That was a long period for a plant to be idle. We introduced a new technology that was already existing, but we applied it. So it was a single-use technology with polymers, so we could do this changeover only in 4 to 7 days. So the plant was much more efficient, and we got the GMP approval, which allows you to sell what you manufacture or to use it for clinical trials in Europe, the US, and Japan. For Japan, it's a PMDA, and for the US, it's the FDA. But that was a very important first step. We were the first in Spain, the second in all Europe, and that's why our buyer then came to make us an offer. At the time we sold the company, we were around 25, and the company who acquired us, they were trying to do the same thing with 150 people in Switzerland. So we did it with 7 times less people and far less expensive than they were doing. Right now, GenHelix has more than 130 jobs. And what makes me the proudest is that, similarly to Japan, León is in the northwest. So in Spain, Madrid is getting a lot of attention, a lot of good jobs and many things, but the provinces are slowly being depopulated. They are losing population. So we contributed by creating 130 jobs, new families. They have their whole lives in front of them, so they are going to buy lots of things, and they are infusing new life to León. That's my biggest pride to this point. And the acquisition was the biggest biotech deal in Spain during the 2013 and 2014 period. And so, after my story, what have I learned? What do I think that it's important after all the good and bad things that I went through? Is what I call the ETR methodology. ETR stands for 3 ingredients that you're going to need in your life in order to be successful, or at least in order to put yourself in a position to be successful. So the first one, English, but not English because of English itself, which is also true. It is English because of what it represents. Also, English is not my mother tongue. I had to learn it, but in order to learn it, I needed to have an open mind for a new culture, for a new language. So I needed to get out of my comfort zone and suffer in the beginning, but the very important thing is that when you learn a new language, when you put yourself into a position to learn a new language, you have to develop new skills. When you have to look for an apartment abroad, when you have to, when you have a foreign boyfriend or girlfriend, when you have to buy a cell phone, when you have to make friends in another language, that makes you be a resourceful person. It sparks your potential. And the key to all this is that your self-confidence, the true good self-confidence, arises from you overcoming those problems, you being able to gain new skills. You are not just, G-man, you are not just feeling that you are good. You put yourself into a difficult position, you learn new things, and now you are here. That's where the good self-confidence grows from. Second one, teamwork. You are going to be leaders. You probably are already leaders, but you are pointing yourself into being leaders. We're talking about the IE here, one of the top business schools in the world. You are going to be leaders. What does it mean to be a leader and to be a good leader? Sir Isaac Newton, famous Isaac Newton, said, "If I have seen further than others, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants." So, even he, who was a true genius, said, "I am who I am, and I saw more because I was supported by giants, but really big and important people." So, what is going to be your main challenge? You have to manage people, and people are not robots. People are at different stages in their lives when they are working with you or for you. Some of them are married, some of them are getting married, some of them are divorced, some of them, I don't know, his or her parents are sick or about to die, or they are having a child, and it has a huge impact in the environment and in their point of view and in their standpoint. Your main task, and very difficult, is to be able to put yourself into the other person's shoes, which is growing empathy. That's extremely difficult, especially when you have your own goals and you see that one person struggling is affecting the rest of the group. You know, putting that situation back to where it has to be, and you as leaders making sure that the team works as a unit, that's your biggest challenge. I give you some tips. No one is indispensable, not even yourselves, not even me. No one is indispensable in this world, but we are all important. I can give you some examples of people not being indispensable. If you think about Apple, Steve Jobs, he died, Apple continued. And he was the founder, he was the soul of the company. Same happened with Microsoft. Bill Gates decided that he wanted to step down, the company carried on, it's still a monster. But I have another example which is even better for me, and that is John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Because in the case of Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, there was a period. Bill Gates said, okay, in one year I'm stepping down, you have time to prepare. Steve Jobs, people knew that he was dying, so they had time for a transition. But John Kennedy was killed, murdered, like from one day to the next. There were no plans, there was nothing to do. What happened? Nothing. The sun goes up, where there is a president, there is a vice president. So the vice president steps in, controls the situation 1 month, calls for an election, and things go on. So no one is indispensable, as tough as it is for us to accept that, but it is the truth. So, but you are a leader, so you have to remember the rule of the 3 arrows. Actually, I heard about this story in a Japanese manner. I heard that there was a samurai who had 3 children and gave them, each one of them, 1 arrow. And they broke the arrow, and okay, and now he took a set of 3 arrows. They tried and they couldn't. What was the lesson? 1 set of 3 arrows is stronger than 3 individual arrows. It is within the Japanese culture, but never forget it. It is critical, it is a very good example for the role that a leader has to have. He has to keep the arrows together. And I can guarantee you that it is not easy at all, especially when things get under stress, and as I told you, each person has different priorities. My last tip on this, don't reinvent the wheel. We have so much input about Elon Musk, again, Jack Ma, like super gurus who are, wow, they changed the world, Rakuten in Japan. If you wait until you think you have the next Rakuten to jump and to try something, you are never going to do anything, because actually the progress comes from small steps. You know a market, you know a certain thing that could be improved, just go from there. Because even Steve Jobs and this Superman, it took them 30 years. Apple needed 30 years in order to have the iPhone ready for the world. Before that, it was a much smaller company. It took them 30 years. Microsoft, it was the same. It took them 20 years until they got a good Microsoft, which was used all around the world. Even with Gen Helix, what I told you, we're talking about monoclonal antibodies, anti-drug, anti-cancer drugs. But what we saw is that there was a technology, there was a need for more manufacturing capacity, and no one has put those 2 things together. But we didn't invent the new technology, nor did we decided that we had to research on anti-cancer drugs. We just saw that there was a match there which was not yet done, and we did it. That was all. So don't reinvent the wheel. Go for the simple things, just 1 step, and from there you go. So we have the E and we have the T. what does the R stand for? Resilience. Do you know what resilience stands for? It's the capacity to adapt and overcome periods of adversity and emotional pain. How do I see this? A Greek philosopher called Heraclitus said, Pantarei. Do you know what Pantarei means? It's kind of known. It means everything flows. So he said that you never jump twice into the same river because the water is different, the environment is different, the birds are different, everything has changed. And I agree with that. Change is going to happen, it's happening in our lives. What's the difference? When the change does not happen as we want it to happen, we call it stress. We call it defeat. We call it uncertainty. In the end, it's all changes. And now, here, at this point, I remember Darwin. Maybe some of you think that Darwin said that only the strong survives. Right? That's not what he said. He said, the one who adapts best survives, which is totally different. In our time, it is more and more difficult that we are going to work 40 years for the same company. It's extremely difficult because all the changes happen at an incredibly fast pace. Even if you work for a huge company, that company is going to get acquired by a huge hedge fund and they're going to lay off half of the people. That's how it works. So probably most definitely you're going to have to change and reinvent yourself every 5 to 7 years. So it is very important that you adapt to new things. I believe that within those changes in your life, every 5 to 7 years, at least once, you're going to try to do something by yourself. You're going to be an entrepreneur. And to me, entrepreneur comes from non-conformism. This is critical, very important. Imagine, for example, imagine 50 years ago, when there was no Shinkansen, and there were regular trains going 100 kilometers per hour, and we had the JR at the time. And JR decided, okay, look, we are not going to invest a lot of money because trains already go 100 kilometers per hour. It's enough. Why do we have to invest all this money so the train goes 110 instead of 100? It's almost no difference. Actually, it is not necessary. You can be just a conformist. It is not necessary. Why should I complicate my life for such a small step? Or imagine for surgeries. A friend of mine, a while ago, he had the ACL injury in the knee, the Juji Jintai, right? He told me that some years ago, when you had such injury, they just cut your leg open, and it was a mess. Most people remained with a limp, right? But then laparoscopy was invented, and now they make you 2 very small incisions in your knee, 1.5 centimeters each. They put 2 cables, they make the magic there, and in 4 weeks you are walking. Now no one has a limp after such injury. I think it's fantastic. So please remember, non-conformism. We all know that things more or less work, but it's thanks to these people who say, no, but I think I can do this a bit better. Thanks to those people, those are the true entrepreneurs. Thanks to those people, things improve. Then, defeat is a great teacher. It's a great teacher. It teaches lessons that no one can teach. I can tell you 2 examples of Jen Helix, for example. Our main investor was a construction guy. So there was a construction boom in Spain. He was making lots of millions. He, instead of investing all the money in a private jet, in a yacht, or whatever, he decided to put some money in the biotech business. He trusted us. When things went bad, for example, and the government had to pay us back the VAT, and they were paying us the VAT, like, when you are investing in the beginning, you invest a lot of money, so you have a lot of VAT that the government has to pay you back, right? And in our case, it was like 1 year's salary amount of VAT. So we went to the bank and we say, look, the government has to pay us this much, they are paying late, so could you please give us credit for this. The government is going to pay. And they told us, who is the main investor in this company? This construction guy. They said, okay, for 1 million euros, we need collaterals for 50 million euros. Not only that, we needed that money to pay for the people. So, for 1 year, I was a co-founder, I was a deputy CEO, and I wasn't getting paid my salary. I was receiving no salary. And me, the same with me, the other two tech partners. So in theory, we were fantastic, we were entrepreneurs, things were going great, and I was receiving €0 as a compensation. Not only that, we had to cut the wages of the people that we brought from other companies, from GlaxoSmithKline, from Lonza, from Genentech, the best companies in the world. We had to sit them down and tell them, look, this is the situation. We have an offer, we are negotiating, but we need to cut the salary temporarily by 20%. And I remember one guy, the director of engineering, we had to cut his salary by 35%. Not only that, we knew that his wife had just been fired from her company. So you can imagine how bad I was sleeping all those days, the days after. It was a disaster. That's what defeat looks like. What many people don't say, what I didn't tell you when I told you about my trip and my path here, those are the bad moments. Luckily, they understood, they knew, they trusted us, they knew the project was solid, and then we paid them back, of course. We paid them the amount, plus the interests, plus a bonus, and not only that, because it's funny how the destiny is. After that, we had their destiny in our hands, because the new company says, who of these people do you think are indispensable for the project? So we had in our hands the power to fire anyone. We could say, look, no one is important, only we are important. But we said, look, all of them are important, and we are only signing this agreement if you guarantee us that you keep all the jobs even after the acquisition. It was a risk for us, but luckily they accepted, we kept all the jobs, and we are still in very good terms. In fact, for the new company, some of them are rejoining us. But there were very tough moments. I want you to remember that. Very fast, crisis. I also like it how it's written in Japanese. It means danger and opportunity. It is your decision, your choice, whether you take it as a danger or that paralyzes you, or as an opportunity. Also, I checked for this conference, and in Greek, crisis comes from the Greek, the ancient Greek, and it means decide, it means decision, which actually, it is also a very good meaning. Crisis now has a very bad meaning, but for the Greeks, it was like that period when the circumstances make you decide and make a choice, which I think is good. And let me just give you a very quick example, a funny one, of a guy, Roberto Goizueta. I think you probably don't know who he is. He was the first Hispanic person to lead a Fortune 500 company. More precisely, the Coca-Cola company in the 80s in the US. He was a Cuban from Spanish descent. Both his parents were from the Basque country originally, from northern Spain. In the 80s, they were trying to enter the Soviet market. It was very difficult for them, very challenging. Things were not going well. He was also losing ground to Pepsi. So they tried a name change. They developed a new product called New Coke, which was another disaster. So the company was about to lose its position as the #1 company in America. During those times, of course, the shareholders were, dissing him and pressuring him, and it was a very rough period for him. And so his collaborators were worried about him. Mr. Roberto, how are you doing? Are you okay? Do you feel fine with all this pressure? And he said, look, no problem. Every night I sleep like a baby. And they said, wow, it's incredible, Mr. Roberto, how you do it? How can you sleep so well? And he said, no, I told you I sleep like a baby, which means I wake up every 2 hours and I start crying, which is not the same. And so the other things, apart from ETR, the other two things that are going to be needed is attitude and hard work. And I'm going to use another Japanese saying, which exists also in English and in Spanish. Rui wa tomo yo. Birds of a feather flock together. I truly think about this. If you are a positive, hardworking person, you're going to be surrounded by that kind of people. If you are negative, passive, always complaining, it doesn't look very good for you. So, this is another critical aspect I want to tell you. I spoke about defeat on purpose, not failure. And I told you, if you remember, defeat is when change does not come the way you want. You want your company to sell X amount of euros. It doesn't happen like that. You want your relationship with your girlfriend to go well. It does not go well. Okay, that's a defeat in your life. But what's the difference between defeat and failure? Defeat is inevitable, it's the change in your life. Failure only happens if you feel that you didn't do the best or you didn't try your best. So, in my opinion, in my experience, if things don't go as you expected, but you tried your best, of course you are, it's disappointing. But after some time, you feel at peace with yourself. You say, okay, look, I tried my best. That was it. So, it is in your hand that your defeats don't turn into failures. That's your responsibility, and you have a lot to do with that. About success, to me it's exactly the same. Success is how you feel about what you did. When all the hype is gone, when you are by yourself having a beer with your friend or totally alone, and you say, look, I think that I did well, I did what I could do. Considering the options, considering everything, I did the best I could. To me, that's being successful, and that is what ultimately brings money, fame, whomever wants fame, and all the good things in life, or what they say that they are good things in life. And there is another, and you have to do it like that, because no matter what you do, there are going to be naysayers, like, why are you doing that? It is not necessary. What I was telling you a minute ago, it is not necessary. A conformist, you say, yeah, but if it was because of that, we won't have Shinkansen, we won't have laparoscopy, we won't have anything. There are always going to be problems, and there are always going to be reasons to give up. In those times, I always say, apply ETR. It's going to help you. It's going to help you. It's going to put you in the right direction. And another interesting thing, a question for you. Do you know the only place where success and money comes before work? Say it once again. What's the only place where success and money comes before work? Think about it, I will tell you later. So, to put it very shortly, are you a doer or an excuser? You choose your path, but once you've chosen your path, you cannot give me excuses. Just do what you can do and feel good about it. Because as Henry Ford said, the founder of the Ford company, he said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. And that's a fantastic word. So I'm gonna give you now a very short, this is a 30-second video, and then there's only the conclusion somewhere.
I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed.
fantastic. I really love it. Only in 30 seconds, I like basketball, obviously. If Michael Jordan says it, I have to believe. But I think he's so right. So, what's the startup mentality? Why did I talk about today? First, in the first level, the base, you need the English for what it represents. Openness, out of the comfort zone, being a resourceful person, and from there, self-confidence. Then, teamwork. You're going to be leaders. You're going to have to manage people, and it is your responsibility. They work as a unit, as a set of arrows, rather than separated arrows. You have to be humble, and you have to remember. Everyone is important, but no one is indispensable. And don't reinvent the wheel. See something, go for it. Resilience. The change is inevitable. Adapt to it, please. And the defeat, the rough times, is a great teacher. And one more thing. Every good company, every good business school is going to ask you about your defeats in life. How you dealt with them, what you learned from them. So it is very important that you make this exercise, because you're going to be asked everywhere. Not about your success, but about your defeats. Lastly, don't let defeats turn into failures. I told you, defeat is not the same as failure. It depends on you. It is your choice whether you are a doer and an excuser. And the answer, what's the only place where success and money comes before work? The dictionary. It's the only place. If you look for success and money in the dictionary, it comes before work. The rest of the places in the world, first you work, then money comes, and then success comes. Don't forget. So, it is my belief that for what I've heard, the companies I have created, the jobs I have created, if you adopt the startup mentality comprised by the ETR method and hard work and a positive attitude, you will be closer to your goals, your projects will work better, and you will have one more tool when things get rough. And you have the Nana Korobi Yaoki on the left. Actually, there are Nana Korobi and Yaoki at the end, sorry. And another word, I don't know, I always say this to me in Spanish. I don't think I haven't heard it in Japanese like a proverb, but I say it to myself. Kyou wa itsumo korekara. This is all I wanted to tell you today, so thank you very much for your time, and I wish you all a great journey. Thank you very much.